Hi, this is John Geddes from Precomposed.com, and in this tutorial we're going to show you how to change the clickable area of a button for a DVD or Blu-ray in Adobe Encore. First, let's just demonstrate what the problem is. So let's go ahead and play a DVD that we've authored. This is just the intro sequence here. And then the main menu comes up. Now, when you place this disc into a computer, you click on buttons using a mouse instead of navigating around with a remote. So when you go to click on a button, nothing happens. The highlights don't show up because the only clickable area is the actual button highlight itself. See that? So when you go ahead and click on the button itself, nothing happens because only that area is clickable. So what we want to do is change the clickable area to encompass the entire button and the text instead of just the button highlight. So let's stop this. So let's go ahead and bring up Adobe Encore to fix this problem. Here is our main menu, and if we click on this right here, it will reveal the button highlights. And if you click on one of the buttons in the Layers panel, it will outline that clickable area of the button. And right now it's just outlining the button highlight itself and not the actual text that you want the user to be able to click on to activate that button. So, how do we change the clickable area? Well, you can't just click and drag that box over because it will just stretch the button highlight, and you do not want that to happen. So what you have to do is edit the menu in Photoshop. So we'll go up at the top here and make sure your menu is selected. Edit menu in Photoshop. Once your menu is open in Photoshop, go ahead and open up the Layers panel. Navigate to one of the buttons. We'll start with our Play Movie button. And this particular button has two button highlight colors. Now, if we just turn these on, you can see where that button highlight is. There is a black inner button highlight and a white outer one. Now, the color of this does not matter as the color is determined in the Encore color set. So, the way Encore determines where the clickable area of a button is it takes all the layers for that button and it draws a rectangle around them. So let's say you have an underline for your button and maybe you have a little box up here. The clickable area would be everywhere inside a big rectangle that encompasses all of the highlight layers. But since our highlight for this button is just this box over here, that is the only clickable area. Another thing to keep in mind is that button highlights for DVDs are 2-bit, which means the pixel is either on or it's off. So any pixel that is above 50% opacity is on, and any pixel that is below 50% opacity is not there. It's completely gone, which is why you cannot have anti-aliased buttons for DVDs. Now in Encore, you can change the opacity of an entire button highlight, but you cannot determine its opacity in Photoshop here. Like I said, the pixel is either on or it's off. However, even though those pixels are not displayed if they have an opacity that is lower than 50%, they are still included in the clickable area of a button. So, in order to change the clickable area of a button, you first want to select any of the highlight layers for that particular button, and you want to make sure you have the right button because if you don't, you're going to have button overlap and you're going to have problems during the build process. So if you need to make sure you are working with the correct button highlight, you can just toggle it on and off just to make sure you are working with the correct one. And select any of the button highlight layers, it does not matter which one. And using the marquee tool, you can press M to make sure you're selecting that correct tool and click and drag the area in which you want to become clickable. And then using the fill tool right here, you can press G to activate that tool as well. Now, you don't want to fill it with 100% because then that whole box will become visible as a button highlight. So you need to change the opacity of the fill to, we'll just say 1%. But actually anything below 50% will work. So let's just change it to 1%. And with the fill tool, just click inside that box. Now you don't see anything, but it's actually filled it with 1% of the color that you have selected. Now, any color will work. It does not matter which color because the pixel data is just ignored anyways. But it does, however, include that in the clickable area for the button. So now if we go back into Encore, you will see that the clickable area for that button has changed. So let's just do the same for the other buttons in here. We'll go to the scene selection button. And we can just turn on this bottom highlight layer and press M to make sure the marquee tool is selected. We'll just click and drag. Press G to activate the fill tool. You have to make sure that layer is selected so we can fill it. And we've already set the opacity for that tool, so that should be set. And just click in that box. Move on to our special features button. Select that layer, turn it on. Press M to activate the marquee tool. Click and drag, press G to activate the fill tool, and fill it. So let's just go ahead and save that. File, save. Now let's close that and go back into Encore. And you can see that the clickable area has now increased to include that area that we just filled. If we select the other buttons, you can see that those clickable areas have changed as well. Now you don't have to worry about there being a slight transparent box that hovers over your buttons in the final DVD, because if you remember, any data that is below 50% opacity is completely disregarded. It's not there whatsoever. So now if you go ahead and build this project, we'll just bring that up and play our DVD. And as you can see, the clickable area has changed to include the entire button.